We're getting some breaking news coming into the situation right now from about Michael Jackson, the king of pop.
Yeah, family members, Jackson family members coming in and people wanting some questions answered as well as us.
Without a doubt, Michael Jackson's worth more dead than alive. People wanted him dead.
He was afraid something's not right. Michael told me that they were going to murder him.
Wait until you see the new footage that just surfaced from Michael Jackson's funeral, because what it shows has completely destroyed the official story we've believed for 16 years.
Right? Are they going to tie the fact that him owning that Beatles catalog, which basically made him a 50% owner of Sony Records, had a lot to do with why he got unalived?
Over 1 billion people watched what they thought was the final goodbye to the king of pop on July 7th, 2009. A golden casket at Staples Center surrounded by grieving family and fans saying farewell to a legend. But newly leaked video from that same day shows something happening at Forest Lawn Memorial Park that wasn't supposed to be there. A hearse parked behind a restricted building, a door opening to reveal a sheet-covered form so thin and fragile it looked almost skeletal, and movement that suggests whatever was inside that vehicle wasn't where the world believed it was.
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent, owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, you know.
The official story started falling apart the moment Michael Jackson died on June 25th, 2009. The timeline was messy from the beginning. Conflicting reports about when 911 was called, confusion about who was in the house, and delays in getting Michael to the hospital that nobody could properly explain.
What about the financial life of that? Is this the property of Sony? Is this the property of whatever record company he was working with at the time? Is this the property of the Jackson Family Trust?
At the moment, it's still the property of Sony, to my belief.
Dr. Conrad Murray claimed he found Michael not breathing around 11 a.m., but the 911 call didn't come until 12:21 p.m., over an hour later. What was happening during that missing time? Why did it take so long to get emergency services to a man who was clearly dying? Even stranger,
Michael Jackson, the king of pop, has died.
Who killed him? Was it an overdose?
Murray's own actions during that missing hour made no sense for a doctor dealing with a medical emergency. According to phone records, Murray was making calls to his girlfriend and his medical practice while Michael was supposedly dying in front of him.
The desperate 911 call came from inside Michael Jackson's rented mansion. It was just before 12:30 p.m., June 25, 2009, in Los Angeles.
He was seen by security carrying bags out of the house before paramedics arrived, bags that were never recovered or explained. And when paramedics finally got there, Murray refused to pronounce Michael dead at the scene, insisting they transport him to UCLA Medical Center, even though it was obvious he'd been gone for a while, giving Murray extra time to clean up whatever evidence might have been in that bedroom. And the questions only got worse when the memorial service was planned, because the level of control and secrecy around Michael's body immediately raised suspicions that something wasn't right.
Just look at what we knew in the first hours of this. Taken to the hospital, there wasn't a bloody knife, there wasn't a smoking gun. There was nothing on the surface that would lead anyone to believe anything nefarious had occurred.
The public memorial at Staples Center on July 7th was the biggest celebrity funeral in modern history. 20,000 people inside the arena, another 6,500 watching on screens at Nokia Theater because they couldn't fit, and an estimated 1 billion viewers watching the broadcast worldwide. The event was produced like a concert, with Mariah Carey, Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, and Jennifer Hudson performing tributes, Usher breaking down while singing Gone Too Soon, and Magic Johnson, Brooke Shields, and others giving emotional speeches about their memories of Michael.
The desperate 911 call came from inside Michael Jackson's rented mansion. It was just before 12:30 p.m., June 25, 2009, in Los Angeles.
But despite all those witnesses, despite all those cameras, despite the elaborate production, nobody ever actually saw Michael Jackson's body. The golden casket sat center stage, sealed from beginning to end, with security so tight that cameras weren't allowed within certain distances and access was heavily restricted to just a handful of people.
Vivid new scenes in the attempt to save Michael Jackson's life. Jurors today in the manslaughter trial of Jackson's personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, listened to a recording of the star's security guard pleading with emergency personnel for help.
Michael's daughter Paris broke down crying while speaking about her father. His brother stood stoic and grief-stricken. But through it all, that casket remained closed, giving the appearance of a funeral without the actual confirmation that comes from viewing.
Many people thought that Michael was murdered. Maybe he committed suicide.
It couldn't have been deliberate, could it?
At the time, most people accepted this as respectful, a private family decision to preserve Michael's dignity and not turn his death into a spectacle. But looking back, that sealed casket was the first major red flag. Closure requires proof, and proof was never given. The world mourned someone they never actually saw, trusting that what was inside that golden box was really Michael Jackson, but having no way to verify it. For a man whose entire life was documented, photographed, and broadcast to millions, his death was suspiciously private.
For the first time tonight, we've learned what investigators believe are the facts about how Michael Jackson died.
While 1 billion people watched the memorial inside Staples Center, something else was happening at Forest Lawn Memorial Park that same day. Security at the cemetery was unusually intense, with certain areas completely locked down and access restricted to only authorized personnel. Activity centered around a specific building, the Hall of Liberty, which wasn't part of any public memorial coverage, wasn't shown on television, and wasn't mentioned in official summaries of the day. But multiple witnesses reported seeing a hearse positioned behind that building during the exact hours the memorial was broadcasting.
In July 2009, a major bombshell. A source tells CNN Dr. Murray gave Michael Jackson the powerful sedative Propofol.
But what makes the newly surfaced footage so shocking is that it shows exactly what was happening at Forest Lawn while the world was watching the memorial, and the timeline doesn't match the official story at all.
Immediately, the investigation focuses on Dr. Murray, the cardiologist hired to care for the pop star during his upcoming concert tour.
The video is grainy, shaky, clearly shot on a phone or handheld camera by someone who wasn't supposed to be filming. It shows a black hearse parked in a restricted area behind the Hall of Liberty, completely hidden from public view and nowhere near where the memorial service was taking place. For several seconds, nothing happens. The vehicle just sits there in complete silence. Then the rear door shifts slightly, not pushed from outside, but moving from the inside like something was pressing against it.
Propofol is usually administered through an IV drip and produces such a comatose state it isn't supposed to be used outside a hospital setting.
Under a white sheet, the outline of an extremely thin human form becomes visible. The fabric clings to the shape beneath it, revealing narrow shoulders, a sunken chest, and skeletal proportions that match exactly what Michael's autopsy described. A 136-pound body that was so frail and surgically altered it barely looked human anymore. The door stays open just long enough for the shape to be clearly visible, then closes again, and the footage ends. The entire clip is maybe 15 seconds, but those 15 seconds raise questions that destroy the entire official timeline.
Today, court documents filed by police in Houston seeking to raid the home office and storage facility of Jackson's personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, were released.
According to every public statement, Michael's body was supposed to be at Staples Center during the memorial, inside that sealed golden casket that everyone was mourning. But if this footage is real, and forensic video analysts who've examined it say there's no evidence of manipulation or fakery, then Michael's body was actually at Forest Lawn during the memorial, which means the casket at Staples Center was either empty or contained something else entirely. Either way, it proves that 1 billion people were mourning a performance, not an actual body.
In August, Dr. Murray makes his first public comments since his star patient's death.
I have done all I could do. I told the truth, and I have faith the truth will prevail.
The timing on the video timestamp matches exactly with the memorial broadcast, meaning whatever was in that hearse was being moved at the precise moment the world believed they were saying goodbye. That's not a coincidence, that's coordination. Someone deliberately arranged for the public memorial to happen in one location while the actual body, assuming that's what the footage shows, was being handled privately somewhere else. The question is why? And what were they trying to hide?
On November 7, 2011, Dr. Conrad Murray is found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 4 years in prison. But it doesn't end there. Michael Jackson's mother and children are bringing a wrongful death lawsuit against AEG, the concert promoter for Jackson's doomed comeback tour.
And the evidence suggesting the whole funeral was staged gets even stronger when you look at what happened after the memorial, because Michael's burial was delayed for over 2 months in ways that make no sense. Official records show Michael wasn't buried until September 3, 2009, nearly 10 weeks after he died. Delayed burials happen sometimes due to legal issues or family disputes, but this wasn't a simple delay. This was a deliberately extended period where Michael's body was supposedly being held somewhere while decisions were made about the final resting place. Multiple locations were considered, burial plans changed several times, and when the final interment finally happened, it was done with extreme security and bizarre precautions that went far beyond normal cemetery procedures.
What is that? Oh my God.
Don't think we want to know, maybe.
Someone taped that on there, right? Yeah.
The burial itself was sealed inside a concrete vault, not just a regular casket burial, but a reinforced structure designed to prevent anyone from ever accessing the body again. Forest Lawn officials claimed this was to prevent grave robbers and obsessed fans from disturbing the site, but critics pointed out that plenty of celebrities are buried without needing fortified concrete tombs. Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, and other legends rest in accessible locations. So why did Michael require containment that looked more like hazardous material disposal than a burial?
But perhaps even more startling was what went on in that room right before the call was made.
Some investigators believe the concrete vault wasn't about protection. It was about making sure nobody could ever exhume the body and verify what was actually buried. If questions arose years later about whether Michael really died or whether the autopsy was accurate, the concrete would make investigation nearly impossible. Once that vault was sealed, the truth was locked away permanently, which is convenient if you have something to hide, but suspicious if everything was legitimate. But the detail that convinced many people something criminal happened is the autopsy itself, because what medical examiners described finding didn't match the public image of Michael Jackson at all.
In the email, AEG's CEO tells the show's director to remind Dr. Murray what is expected of him, and that AEG is paying his salary.
The official autopsy report painted a disturbing picture. Michael weighed just 136 pounds at death, dangerously underweight for someone 5 feet 9 inches tall. His body showed evidence of extensive plastic surgery, chronic health issues, and vitiligo that had destroyed his natural skin pigmentation. But the details that really shocked people were the cosmetic alterations. His scalp had been tattooed to simulate a hairline because he'd lost most of his real hair due to a 1984 Pepsi commercial accident, and his lips had been permanently tattooed pink because the vitiligo had turned them pale.
Jackson's family believes AEG pressured Murray, even threatened his $150,000 a month job as the singer's personal physician. All so Michael Jackson could rehearse, despite his fragile health.
Even more disturbing, the autopsy noted puncture marks and scarring consistent with years of prescription drug abuse, particularly propofol, the surgical anesthetic that ultimately killed him. Medical examiners found propofol, lorazepam, and other sedatives in his system at levels that suggested chronic use, not a one-time accident. This wasn't someone who accidentally took too much medication. This was someone whose body had been systematically destroyed by drugs administered regularly, possibly for years.
Because he's the doctor who allowed Michael Jackson to die basically from propofol, a propofol overdose.
Dr. Conrad Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter for administering the propofol that killed Michael, but many people believe Murray was a scapegoat for a much larger conspiracy. Murray claimed he was just following Michael's instructions, that Michael was desperate for sleep and demanded the propofol despite knowing the risks. But others argue Murray was hired specifically because he was willing to do things legitimate doctors wouldn't, and that people around Michael wanted him medicated and controllable for financial reasons.
Yes, and I would say in addition to Sony ATV, Michael has his own publishing company, which is called MyJack, which owns all of his own songs as well as many other songs we bought over the years. So when you add the two companies together, it's even more valuable.
The estate was worth billions, and Michael's death triggered insurance payouts, catalog sales, and revenue streams that certain people stood to profit from massively. If Michael had lived, he might have regained control of his assets, fired the people exploiting him, and exposed the financial crimes that had been draining his accounts for years. Dead, he became infinitely more valuable and manageable, which gives multiple people clear motive to want him gone.
Michael Jackson's death is officially ruled a homicide. In February 2010, Dr. Conrad Murray is charged with involuntary manslaughter. He pleads not guilty.
And the conspiracy goes even deeper when you look at who was around Michael in his final days and what they were doing to keep him isolated and dependent. In the months before his death, Michael was preparing for the This Is It concert series, 50 shows in London that were supposed to be his comeback. But people close to Michael said he was in no condition to perform, that he was physically weak, mentally unstable, and being pushed beyond his limits by people who cared more about ticket sales than his health. Rehearsal footage shows Michael looking frail, confused, and sometimes barely able to complete dance moves that he'd done effortlessly for decades.
Yeah.
You tour around that?
No, that's what I'm saying. Nothing, no tour, no only one video. And that was the most disappointing thing because we worked so hard. Like we spent a lot of time, a lot of hours, like years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Kenny Ortega, the tour director, sent emails to AEG Live executives expressing serious concerns about Michael's health and ability to perform. In one email, Ortega wrote that Michael was emotionally fragile, shivering and couldn't focus, and that continuing rehearsals might be dangerous. AEG's response was to bring in Dr. Murray to make sure Michael showed up and performed, essentially hiring someone to drug Michael into compliance rather than addressing the health issues.
And sentenced to 4 years in prison. But it doesn't end there. Michael Jackson's mother and children are bringing a wrongful death lawsuit against AEG.
Multiple people who worked on the production have said the concerts were doomed from the start, that Michael could never have completed 50 shows in his condition, and that AEG knew this, but pushed forward anyway because they'd already sold hundreds of thousands of tickets and couldn't afford to cancel. Some believe the plan all along was to get Michael through enough rehearsals to film footage for a documentary, then profit from his death when he inevitably collapsed under the pressure.
Yeah.
You tour around that?
No, that's what I'm saying. Nothing, no tour, only one video. And that was the most disappointing thing because we worked so hard. Like we spent a lot of time, a lot of hours, years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
the fact that extensive high-quality rehearsal footage existed and was immediately compiled into the This Is It documentary after Michael died supports this theory. Someone was prepared to monetize his death before it even happened, which suggests they knew it was coming and had already planned how to profit from it. The documentary made over $260 million worldwide, more than covering AEG's investment and proving that dead Michael was more profitable than alive, Michael struggling through concerts he couldn't complete. So what really happened to Michael Jackson, and why has it taken 16 years for footage to surface that proves the funeral we all watched wasn't what we thought it was?
Dr. Murray did not cause the death of Michael Jackson.
That would be up to a jury to decide. In September 2011, more than 2 years after Michael Jackson's death, Conrad Murray goes to trial.
The evidence points to a coordinated effort to control every aspect of Michael's death, from the delayed 911 call that gave people time to clean up the scene, to the sealed casket that prevented public verification of the body, to the secret movement of remains shown in the leaked footage, to the concrete vault burial that made future investigation impossible. Each piece individually might be explainable, but together they form a pattern of deliberate deception designed to hide the truth about what killed Michael and who was responsible.
One doesn't want to have to sell those assets. So, those are cornerstone assets that we plan on keeping for Michael's children. And
the leaked footage from Forest Lawn destroys the official narrative because it proves something was happening behind the scenes that the public never saw. If Michael's body was at the cemetery during the memorial, then what was in that golden casket at Staples Center? If they needed to secretly transport remains while staging a public funeral, what were they hiding? And why, if everything was legitimate, did they need that level of deception and control?
Without a doubt, Michael Jackson's worth more dead than alive. People wanted him dead.
He was afraid something's not right. Michael told me that they were going to murder him.
For 16 years, people accepted the story they were given. that Michael Jackson accidentally overdosed on propofol administered by a negligent doctor, and that the massive public memorial was a proper goodbye to a legend. But the footage changes everything, forcing people to reconsider whether they witnessed a funeral or a carefully staged performance designed to create the illusion of closure while the real story was being buried literally and figuratively somewhere else. The truth about Michael Jackson's death isn't in the official reports or the public memorial, it's in those 15 seconds of hidden footage showing what was really happening while 1 billion people watched a lie. Hit subscribe because the investigation into Michael Jackson's death is being reopened, and what comes out next about who really killed the King of Pop is going to expose a conspiracy that reaches into the highest levels of the music industry.